Hi, I'm Maggie Weldon from maggiescrochet.com, and this arm knitted Afghan video is sponsored by Premier Yarns. For this Afghan, I use Couture Jazz by Premier, and this comes in 14 beautiful colors, and this color here is called Hope. And this is a number 6 super bulky weight yarn. And so this is perfect for arm knitting because you only need one strand. You don't have to deal with multiple strands, so that's a big advantage with this yarn. And this Afghan I used 10 skeins for. You could use more or less. The width is about 3 feet wide and the length is about 4 feet long. And it stretches quite a bit, so you could, depending on how you stretch it, you'll get different measurements. So this took me about an hour and a half to do, and now I'm going to go to a close-up and show you how to start the Afghan and then finish the Afghan. And the links to everything are listed below, and I want to thank you very much for watching. So when I'm arm knitting with Couture Jazz for this Afghan, I'm going to try this new technique for the cast on, and you don't need the long tail for it. You need about an 8-inch end, and then you make a slip knot. And to make the slip knot, you just make a loop. The top strand goes over the back, and then you pull the back, go in through that loop, and then pull that strand forward out of the loop. So you'll notice there's a knot side and a slip side. You just pull on the knot side, and then the slip side should loosen up and be big enough to go on your arm. One of the things you want to be super aware of is that these loops are going to go way up on a wider part of your arm. So you want to make sure that they're looser than the loops that you would have like for a scarf. So you want to make sure that they're big enough to go all the way up here near your elbow, because when you don't, you're constantly fighting the loops. And so anyway, for this different type of cast on, what you do is you take your working yarn in your hand like this, and you move the slip knot off, and that's your first chain right there. And this is basically hand chaining. So you're going to hand chain the 24 stitches. So you bring this loop up so it's just big enough to fit across your fingers like this. Then you grab the working yarn like this and bring that through. So that's your second stitch. And then I'm giving this some height here, and then I'm going to grab the working yarn again. I use this hand to kind of stabilize the chain. So there's number 3 and number 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and 9 and 10 and 11 and 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, and 24. So there's a hand chain of 24, and that's basically how wide your Afghan's going to be. So then you take the last loop, leave it up on your hand like this. And what you want to do now is this counts as your first stitch, that one loop. So what you're going to do now is just to turn this so that all these ovals are facing you like this. And what you're going to do is reach your fingers down into the next chain and pull up a loop like this and put that on your hand. And then go down into the next loop right here and pull up a loop like that. And so now this is my cast on. I've got that chain underneath it. So I'm going to reach down into the next loop, bring that up like this, and then keep reaching down, and I'm grabbing the working yarn and bringing that up and putting that up on my arm. So you just keep doing that all the way across until you count 24 loops on your arm, just like this. So I've got these rather loose. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that's how you cast on using a foundation chain, basically. So I'll just keep going and picking up a loop from each chain like that until I have all 24 on my arm. There's other videos where I show you how to do the long tail cast on version, and if you want to do that version, you would measure off 8 yards to do a long tail cast on. But I'm just going to keep putting all these loops up on my arm. See how it gets? You got to have enough room for your whole. I guess if you want to have smaller stitches, you got to teach your kids how to make these. And I've been hearing a lot of kids are learning this and they love it. Okay. So I'm just reaching down into the chains and bringing up the loop and then putting that on my arm. There. Okay, so now I've got all my loops on my arm. I feel like a mummy. This is funny. Okay, so now to get to, now I'm ready to start row 1. And to do that, I just take my working yarn like this and I hold it like this and I drop this loop off and put the new loop over here. So all the loops are going to land up over on this arm, and again, you want to make sure they're kind of loose. Working yarn back here like this, move the old loop onto the new loop, and take the new loop and put it over on the opposite arm, and tighten just a little bit. Here's where I connected 2 skeins together, and I'm going to be doing another video where I show you how to join these together. You can just like sleeve them inside of each other and then take a needle and thread, and I did this just a little bit different, so I'll be showing you that in another video. So anyway, I'm already starting a new skein. I'm going to drop this off and move this over, and then drop this off, move it over. So I'm continuously picking up my working yarn like this, and then I'm going to take the old loop, drop it off onto the new loop, take the new loop and put it on the opposite arm. And I've got these loose enough to slide up. So I just keep doing that until I have all 24 back over to the other side. I love this color. There's another color too I was tempted to use, and it's a really deep, like fuchsia type pink. It's really pretty. After this should take probably maybe about an hour to do, or an hour to 2 hours, and by the time you get this all done, it's such a relief to get it off your arms. And then another thing you might want to do is have a big wood dowel so that you could slide this off if you wanted to take a break. Okay, I've almost got them all over. A lot of them can just like bunch up by your hand, so they don't really go past your elbow. Okay, this is the last one, and that completes row 1. Okay, so this is what your row 1's gonna look like. Because of the giant yarn, it gets done really quick. I don't even think it's going to take much more than an hour to do this. But you see your loops from the cast on are there, the leftover loops from the chain, and that is what row 1 looks like. It's funny. Okay, so you just keep going back and forth between your arms, and so to start getting them back over to here, I'm going to hold my yarn like this, drop that loop off, take the new loop and move it over here. So I'll just go all the way back over to the other arm, and I'm doing these pretty loose because I know that these have to go up here. So just keep doing that, and then when you're on your yarn, you want to stop when you have 8 yards left, because you are going to need to bind off like a typical bind off from knitting, and so you definitely want to have 8 yards left at the end. You don't want to run short on that one. So go ahead and keep doing this back and forth with your arms. Before long, you're going to have this beautiful Afghan. It's going to be gorgeous. And then stop when you have 8 yards left, and then I'll come back on camera with mine and I'll show you how to bind it off. It's pretty cool. My Afghan is ready to be bound off, and to do so I've left plenty of yarn for my bind off, and all the loops landed over on my right arm, and they could have just as easily landed up on my left arm, and you can bind off on either arm, it doesn't matter. So I'm very pleased with the way this turned out, and it only took me probably about an hour and a half to do. And I figured it out that you get about 49 loops per skein of Couture Jazz. So since this is about 22 stitches on here, then you get about 2 rows per skein. So I'll put all the exact measurements and all the sizing on the listed below the video. But to bind off now, you just take your working yarn like this and you knit off 2 stitches. So there's 1 stitch, and there's 2, just like that. And then you tighten after each stitch. You take the first stitch that you knitted off and you move it over the new stitch right there. So you take the previous one and drop it off over the new one. So you just let that drop off, and that is a bound off stitch right now. So then you put the yarn back over here, knit the next one off and put it over here. You take the previous loop, move it over the new loop and let it drop off. Take the working yarn, knit that next stitch like that, tighten, take the previous loop, move it over the new loop, and just keep doing the same thing all the way down until all your loops are bound off, and it'll be such a relief and nice feeling to have all these loops off. So drop this one off, and you see how it's creating a little chain ridge on the bottom here. So knit the next one off like this, and then you take the previous loop, drop it over the new loop, take your working yarn like this, move it over here, take your previous loop, drop it over the new loop, take your, now the factory ties knots like this, and I'm not so sure that that's not a bad way to do it, because I was trying it a different way and I didn't like the way that turned out. And the problem with this yarn is that it's so thick and bulky, it's hard to, you know, like weave in the ends or sew the ends together. And I'm almost starting to think that the way where you take a needle and thread and sew them together is actually the cleanest way to do it. But this pretty much gets hidden into the Afghan. So you just knit this one off like this and drop the previous one over it. And then you knit the next one like this. Take the previous one and drop it over. You just keep doing this all the way down. And freedom is in sight here. As soon as I get all these off. Oh, I did that one other time on camera. The girl that was working with me said, "What are you doing?" Okay, so I was going on to knit the third stitch off, but I don't want to do that. I want to just do 2 stitches and move this one over, then do the next one. Only 2 at a time. Almost down to the end. This would be a great quick gift for somebody. Nice and warm, especially somebody that lives in a cold state or country. Okay, last one. Look at this. Yay! Oh, it feels so good. So good. Okay, so on the last one, I'm gonna take the previous loop, drop it over the new loop like this. So my last loop, I do not want to lose that one. I'm gonna take, just for now, I'm just gonna take the remaining yarn. You might want to cut this about 18 or 12 or 18 inches out, and then you just bring all the end there through the last loop on your hook, and you pull that a little bit, and it locks it. It's not going anywhere. So this is your bind off edge right here. See how it made the little loops? It looks like a crochet chain. So then all you got to do is weave these ends in. You can do them with your hands. You can put this on a big bobby pin or safety pin and just weave this through your stitches. You have to weave this through your needle and thread and just tack this down. You could also, on the very ends, when you're ready to, on the cutoff edge, you could just fold this in like this, and wherever that lands up, just kind of stitch it down with that clean edge there. But that is how you arm knit an Afghan using Couture Jazz. And the links to everything are listed below, and I want to thank you very much for watching, and make sure that you subscribe to our channel.